We've covered Family Guy a few times. The cast is full of outrageous characters with some questionable motives. Well, that's an understatement. Even the main characters are objectively terrible. Over the years, we've come to meet some other characters who were cruel and seem to only show up in Quahog for the purpose of making others miserable. Characters with dark sides. But the question is, of all these awful people, who is the most evil? Hey guys, I'm Brad with Wicked Binge, and this is Family Guy Villains, evil to most evil.
Yeah, that's right. I'm weird.
Family Guy characters are over the top, so sometimes it's difficult to rank morality by any real-world standard, but we'll try. We'll be starting with the least evil and working our way down to the most vile and ruthless. Starting with the least evil, we have Doug the Pimple. A troublemaker from one of the earliest episodes, he revealed he was able to speak and led Chris into trouble. He encouraged Chris to commit vandalism and fought back against being taken out. Doug grew to the point where he was able to reach into Chris's brain, somehow, to make Chris hit himself, keeping Chris subservient to him.
She's trying to drive us apart. We can't let that happen.
It isn't clear how he gets a gun, but his gang mentality and need to control Chris created a lot of trouble. Karen Griffin, Peter's sister, is next. She isn't looking to run a gang or take over the world, but she abused Peter horribly. When she appeared on the show, she was quick to pick on Peter. She stepped in to take over his dinner and the game afterwards, tackling him with one of her wrestling moves and pointing out his stutter when he lapses back into his nervous behavior.
And whenever he stutters, he usually pees his pants.
When Peter tried standing up to Karen in the ring, she didn't show him any mercy and nearly killed him. What a bully. Quagmire's ex-wife, Joan, is next. Longtime fans will remember her as a volatile woman, forcing Quagmire to stay with her by threatening to kill him and herself if he left her.
I love you too, insane woman I'm having second thoughts about.
What?
Joan had a lot of her own issues she clearly needed to deal with. Her character was a tragic one, and she was never able to get the help she needed. But honestly, it was pretty cool of Death to agree to take her instead of Quagmire. We're gonna place Michael Puashi next. A bully featured in only one episode, his temper was well known. He'd been labeled as unhinged when he arrived at the formerly titled James Woods High. He demanded a fight from Meg after a simple accident involving a school lunch, and then left threats when she tried to find ways out of the confrontation.
What's your name, dude?
Meg Griffin!
His defeat was an unexpected one, but it was gruesome. Connie's up next. Much like Michael, she was a school bully. She loved tormenting Meg. Over the course of the series, she has eased up on how she treats Meg, likely because of Connie's brief relationship with Chris. But we had to give her a slightly higher rank than some of the others, due to her near success in framing Lois for her death.
It's great to have you home from prison.
It was kind of an overreaction to being expelled, since Connie was the one to attack Lois first, but it was still devious. The Giant Chicken is next. He began as a running gag character and has slowly developed into a more civil rival against Peter, with the two of them butting heads in a way that doesn't cause much collateral damage anymore. Though he's more of a homewrecker, trying to start a relationship with Lois, we have to grant him a lot of evil points due to the trouble he caused in early seasons.
Awesome. A chick fight.
And he and Peter combined have been responsible for the deaths of countless people and the destruction of billions of dollars worth of property, all over an expired coupon. Now we have Peter's ex, Gretchen Mercer. She resembles Meg in that she seems nice when you first meet her, but as viewers are quick to find out, Gretchen is obsessive and territorial.
Thank you, Cleveland.
Once Peter comes back into her life thanks to an old letter, Gretchen deludes herself into thinking he suddenly belongs to her. She tries to kill Lois, thinking it will lead to Peter being with her instead. A crazy type of evil, but she still earns her spot here on the villain list. The Man in White only appeared once in one of the early seasons, but we had to mention him. Though Stewie's original idea of the Man in White was something different, the man we're mentioning is the cult leader that nearly got Peter and Meg killed. He was upset to find that Peter had unknowingly stopped the children from killing themselves when he had taken the kids to Stewie's birthday party. When the man came to the party, determined not to die alone, he was defeated by Stewie, being mistaken for the enemy that Stewie thought was responsible for his embarrassment a year before. We wouldn't have a complete list without Stewie Griffin. Though he doesn't act on his hate towards Lois as much in the most recent seasons, he's still a formidable toddler. The kid's been able to build all types of weapons and machinery. able to destroy countries and the countless lives in them. Since he's calmed down and become more protective of his family, he's earned a lot of redemption points.
And by the way, let's be clear, I only like you as a friend.
It was hard to rank him because he has mellowed out after the first seasons, but he gets weighed down by those early evil actions. Trying to take over the world, not to mention trying to kill his own mother, seems to be in the past now, but those actions can't be entirely overlooked. Lana Lockhart, Chris's temporary substitute teacher, is worth mentioning. She was portrayed as little more than eye candy at the beginning of the episode. But by the end, she was shown to be a manipulative woman who was determined to use Chris's infatuation with her to kill her husband.
I need you to kill my husband.
Lana eventually takes out her husband and is never seen in the show again, but she's a good reminder of how easy it can be to manipulate a teenage boy, and killing her husband by putting a full-grown bear in his oatmeal is pretty brutal. Sheldon the Turtle, Stewie's temporary pet, is next. It's unclear why he felt the need to focus his attacks on Stewie after carefully conducting small ones against the rest of the Griffin family, but even being flushed away didn't stop him. He had attempted several methods to take out Stewie, but was defeated by Super Mario, of all things. James Woods caused enough trouble that we had to add him. James Woods is probably one of the best animation cameo appearances of all time. Initially invited to Quahog when the name of the high school was up to be changed, he was a gracious man and supported the idea. However, James did not stay kind. He became fixated on Peter, to the point that Peter had to resort to desperate measures to get away.
Look, James, you're acting kind of weird. I'll act however I want to act.
When James returned, he exacted revenge by stealing Peter's identity, and he did well with that method until Peter gave him a piece of his own medicine. He attempted to redeem himself, which is why we're not placing him higher on our list, but he was still unpredictable and prone to snap. Luckily, James Woods loves candy, and he was able to be defeated each time. Glenn Quagmire is next. We've covered him on our Family Guy Good to Evil ranking and mentioned that Glenn is one of the worst people in the show, despite being a naval pilot and hero. Glenn's behavior goes past womanizing and promiscuity and enters some really dark and predatory territory. He's exactly the type of guy every woman grows up being warned about. Though he has his moments when he's looking out for his own daughters, his mother Ida or helping Meg, he still has earned the title of villain. It's only due to Family Guy's over-the-top, ridiculous style of humor that you can have a character who regularly showcases some of the absolute best and worst morality, all depending on which episode it is. Diane Simmons earns the next spot due to her actions before her death. Diane was a woman pushed too far. She'd been neglected by James and had been discriminated against due to her age at work. She eventually fought to take down the men that had mistreated her, and her original plan was to focus on killing James and frame Tom for the murder. We had to place her higher since, when caught in a tight spot, she resorted to hunting down everyone that had been trapped at James's dinner party. Patrick, Lois's brother, was a man who struggled with this trauma. It wasn't his fault that he was affected so much by what he had witnessed as a child, nor was it his fault that he was essentially forgotten about after he was committed in an institution. We even grant him some hero points for helping with a murder investigation later on to save Chris, but the fact still remains that he had killed a number of people simply for resembling the man he found with his mother. Sheriff Nichols was the man responsible for tormenting Joe, Peter, Glenn, and Cleveland when they were driving through the South. He used his influence to abuse anyone he saw fit.
Well, looky here. What do we got in this thing?
He was a racist that was quick to discriminate. When the men escaped and made it back to Quahog, he was berated and disciplined for his actions, but he stands as a cautionary tale. The sad fact is that there are plenty of men and women who share his beliefs, and that makes them dangerous. A bit of a tough call, but next we're placing Franz Gutentag. A former Nazi, he had tried to blend into a new community as a shop owner. When his secret was threatened, he held Chris and Peter at gunpoint and kept them held in his basement.
How do I know which one is the real dad?
We can't give him any benefit of the doubt about his crimes because an office dedicated to Nazi memorabilia and that he was quick to turn to violence when almost exposed tells us this man is a war criminal. Charles Yamamoto is next. After being embarrassed about losing to Chris in a hot dog eating contest, he made it his duty to track down Chris all the way to his camp.
Now you must die.
Charles wound up killing several kids he had mistaken as Chris before finally getting close. Luckily, he was able to be stopped, but we had to place him higher since his murder of innocent kids didn't stop him from his goal. As far as Charles was concerned, it was merely a misstep. Miss Emily was Stewie's daycare teacher for a short time. While many would look at this woman and see nothing more than a sweet lady with a pretty face, she was revealed to be a monster who neglected and abused children. We learned that she keeps dangerous materials out, grabs children hard enough to mark them, or even pull their arms from their sockets and doesn't feed them or check on them.
Does this look like I slept on it funny? I'm gonna tell Mom.
Women like her are the reason so many parents are paranoid about leaving their kids with a babysitter or in daycare, and there's little more evil than straight-up abuse of an innocent child. Mahmoud was the man Peter met in the hospital. He helped to teach Peter about Islamic culture, leading the audience to believe that he was a nice guy who was there to help enlighten the audience about culture. However, that all backfired when Mahmoud exposed his plan to blow up a bridge.
He's the perfect man to help us blow up the Quahog bridge.
Though he was stopped, his goal was achieved when Peter unknowingly used a phone that was disguised as a remote. Evil Stewie was the product of Stewie trying to find his more devious side. When called out by Brian that he had gone soft over the series, Stewie made a machine to concentrate the more violent part of his personality.
We're going to run a few tests on...
Evil Stewie went on to torture, kill, and rampage until he was finally stopped by Stewie and Brian. Sonia was a tech expert and Glenn's girlfriend. While Quagmire had loved having her around at first, with Sonia being as adventurous as he was, he soon found that it wasn't all that it was cracked up to be. Sonia wasn't just adventurous, she was violent. Much like Glenn, she took consent as an option and drugged and assaulted people.
This is one of your fantasies, right? Public humiliation?
Once a man became too desperate to get away, she would take them down to a storage unit to be held prisoner, using them until she had to dispose of them. It's implied that she was labeled by the community as a psycho, and men were warned to stay away from her, which leaves us to wonder just how many men she had ended with her lustful craze. Bertram is Stewie's brother, and next on our list. He made it his goal to destroy Stewie by any means necessary. By the end, Bertram didn't care if it meant ridding the world of himself or possibly destroying the universe. His narrow fixation made him unpredictable and cold, leaving the viewer to wonder what his next move would be. It takes a special kind of evil to want to annihilate someone to the point that you're willing to be taken down with them. Jeffrey is next on our list. And no, we don't mean Bruce's longtime boyfriend and eventual husband. The Jeffrey we're discussing is the man who dated Brenda, Glenn's sister. In a dark episode, Brenda comes to stay with Glenn when he's being released from the hospital after a near-death experience. The proximity leads the entire neighborhood realizing how abusive and cruel Jeff is. When he gets Brenda pregnant, Glenn decides enough is enough and joins his friends to take Jeff out.
You're getting married?
Yeah, but only 'cause she's pregnant.
We're not saying that murder is the way to go, but it was rewarding to see Glenn protect his sister and rid the world of someone vile. For our bronze medal of evil, we have Herbert. Herbert was a character we've discussed before, but we feel that we need to mention him again for this ranking.
Got a nice tip for you right here in my pocket.
It's no secret to viewers that he has long since been infatuated with Chris. He lures children to his basement with the promise of treats, drugs, and cookies, and he films young children. And he pulls every trick in the book that parents warn children to watch out for. If you look up who is the villain on Family Guy on Google, the name that will keep reappearing is Carter Pewterschmidt, and we're giving him the silver medal. A corrupt businessman, neglectful husband and father, and an abusive man all around.
Go to hell, you fat peasant!
He committed Babs so that he couldn't be bothered with going through an actual separation. He created an assortment of games to abuse Peter, blaming Peter for ruining his daughter. He does everything he can to control others, and presses his short-sighted views. Throughout all of his appearances, Carter enjoys being cruel, harming others and humiliating those around him.
Yeah, I guess you don't want a new family, toys, and a puppy.
Finally, we arrive at the gold medal of evil. Brian had it right when he said Penelope creates chaos for the sake of chaos.
But this girl, she just creates chaos for the sake of chaos.
We have to place her as our most evil Family Guy villain due to the amount of people she affects all over the world. The girl is in possession of weapons of mass destruction. She creates tsunamis, earthquakes, and other such natural disasters just for the sake of doing so. She admits to Stewie that she was the one to murder her mother and tried to kill Brian when she thought he was keeping her and Stewie from being together.
She was taking a tub and somebody came in and cut her head off.
It was almost bittersweet to lose her as a character. Alright, but what do you think? Who are the most evil among the Family Guy villains? Let us know in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that notification bell and binge our Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters in your favorite cartoons, shows, and movies. But most importantly, stay wicked.